YouTube when you consider how draconian the censorship was.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. I thought
Now, X is really in trouble because they're saying there's just an infinite flood of fake AI-generated Iran war videos on Twitter.
We'll talk about that. Lynn Ertell, all the way from Baltimore, Maryland. Hello, Lynn.
I can't hear it. Turn it up. I can't
Criminally
hear it. Turn it up.
corrupt.
Turn it up. Turn it up. Turn it up. Turn it up. I can't hear it. Turn it up. I
Boy
can't hear it.
Mayor Brandon Scott.
Turn it up. Turn it up. Turn it up. When I pick a song, it's about a subject that I'm addressing.
Benton says Lynn for president. Are you running?
Presidents are stooges. The president is the crisis actor in chief.
There's never been one like
I'd
that.
rather be like Stalin, like a commissar, you know? I'd rather have real power. You know? Don't even take me there. You know, Brian called me up, Brian from Brian and Jenna.
All right, Biochar Brian.
Brian Jenna wanted me to mention the fact that we've got a lot of Trojan horses and stalking horses and shills in the conspiratainment world that are pushing memes directly from communitarian law. And one of these is the phrase, the intentional community. Turn it up, turn it up, I can't hear it.
I heard that.
Turn it up, turn it up, turn it up.
I heard that.
Turn it up, turn it up, turn it up, I can't hear it.
I heard that.
Turn it up, turn it up, turn it up.
I heard that.
And I'm over-blaming groups like Catholics, the Jews, the Jesuits.
Southern Israel.
I name the individuals who have committed crimes for which they ought to be arrested and convicted and turn it up, turn it up, turn it up. Subject to some pretty severe punishment. Things like racketeering and treason, not just fraud. I'd rather be like Stalin, like a commissar, you know? I'd rather have real power, you know? Don't even take me there. Turn it up, turn it up, turn it up. I can't hear it.
I heard that.
Turn it up, turn it up, turn it up.
I heard that.
Turn it up, turn it up, turn it up. I can't hear it.
I heard that.
Turn it up, turn it up, turn it up.
I heard that.
But I'm not talking about Jews, Jesuits, Catholics, black, white. I'm pointing to shills.
So who do you want to know if it was that they were just?
I don't care if they were or not. Guys, come over to FAK1232. If it's good, you're gonna find it on FAK1232. Turn it up, turn it up, turn it up, turn it up. Turn it up, turn it up, turn it up. And we don't have ads on FAK1232. Turn it up, turn it up, turn it up, turn it up.
No, there's no ads yet.
Right. Turn it up, turn it up, turn it up. I can't hear it. Guys, come over to FAK1232. FAK1232.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, it's Thursday, March the 12th, 2026. We actually forgot to mark the 6th anniversary of 3/11 yesterday. Amazing how time goes, how fast it goes. But
Because people want to forget the COVID.
Yeah, I know.
Except people who think like us. We want to remember it because we recognize it as, in terms of magnitude.
Yeah.
You know, after 9/11, and 9/11 was pretty big. They turned the world upside down with that. But the COVID makes 9/11 look like child's play.
COVID was worldwide. Everyone had their own franchise of it. Actually, it was
exactly like the Iranians had their own lockdowns and vaccine and
But it was centrally controlled and it was centrally themed. But everyone had a little twist to it. But the bottom line,
the entire worldwide media was monolithic.
Yeah.
On the COVID, they shut down anybody questioning the basic virology or the PCR or the stupid, walk into a restaurant with a mask, take the mask off. Oh, you got to go to the restroom, put the mask on, take it back off. The most stupidly religious rituals.
It was crazy.
It was crazy, and we have yet to truly plumb the depths,
Yeah.
the psychic depths of course, for me, it's all about livestock management. That's what everything is about. Everything.
Yeah.
War, peace, climate crisis, brainwashing, mind control. It's about livestock management. That's
Management.
how they view
By the
us.
way, you talk about wars. I added a new forum
I see
that
you reorganized it. Yeah.
I didn't do it. Actually, Rachel, I think, did it.
Well,
So
good idea. Good
yeah.
idea.
Well, I only did it because, of course, we have a fake war going on. Whether you believe whatever you believe the extent of the fakery, it doesn't matter. There are elements of fakery in it, to be sure. So I
Well,
created this forum here, and Rachel's already moved anything related to wars into this. You know yourself. We can categorize things a million different ways anyway. There's so
and
much.
they all get involved with each other. Like
Yeah,
the same world stage actors that stage these events like wars, they're part of the corona, the
yeah.
worldwide COVID psyop. So
COVID was a military operation.
they actually they took a pause. They had a truce during the sort of between the Israelis and the Palestinians, just so everybody could get their shot.
Yeah,
Oh
that's right.
yeah, they
Right.
all together on it. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone was
Run by groups like Doctors Without Borders and the World Health Organization. These are the real controllers, these people. Big pharma. Oh yeah. Yeah.
by the way, before I forget to ask you, and I figured for sure you'll know this, it came up on last night's show. Do you know what Tammany Hall is?
Oh yes.
Yeah, I knew
Oh
you
my
knew.
God. Tammany Hall is the history of the Democratic Party in New York City. Oh yes. And it really didn't become it really goes back to about the time of the 1780s when it was founded, but the Irish came in and pretty much took it over, and it became sort of a foundation of Irish political power in New York City. And of course, it was legendary for its corruption. If you go and look at the political cartoons of Thomas Nast, Nast,
Okay.
probably the most famous political cartoonist in American history, I think. Very much during the Civil War period and the post Civil War period. And all you got to do is you do an image search on Thomas Nast.
Here it is. NAS cartoons,
Yeah,
thomasnast.com.
Big Boss Bill Tweed. Does he
There
have
it is.
pictures?
Yeah, right away.
Yeah, and the movie Gangs of New York was mentioned
Yep.
last night. Okay,
Yep.
well that's Martin Scorsese's interpretation of a novel based on real historical events that are not really taught or weren't being taught in high school or college history classes, maybe more now, concerning the draft riots that occurred in New York City the same weekend that Gettysburg was fought. They had a shortage of troops to restore order in New York City because what happened was they brought over all these Irish and Germans because the Union was running out of troops, I guess. And for $300 you could get a replacement. So if you had the money, you didn't have to go serve. But if you were like one of these, low class immigrants that just came over, that was it. They gave you your rifle, your boots, your uniform, and marched you off. And word had come back. I don't know if they had received the news from Gettysburg yet, but this was a point in the war between the states, the Civil War, when a sizable number of Northerners they were tired of it already. And in particular, they were supporting the presidential candidacy of General George McClellan, who Lincoln didn't like because Lincoln felt like McClellan didn't want to sacrifice any troops and really get down and win the war. And so the presidential election of 1864 could have led to a premature settlement with the South if Lincoln had not won. But of course, he defeated McClellan. But this is, of course, Gettysburg is before that. That's July 1863. And the New York City draft riots, as I say, occurred at almost exactly the same time. There were so many terrible conditions in New York City, but this idea that if you had the money, you could buy your way out of the military draft, this just infuriated people. And that's what led to these riots. And the riots spread, and then the rioters started going into the black section. New York City had a sort of its own black ghetto at the time, or a section of the city. I shouldn't call it a ghetto because it probably wasn't any different than the rest of the city. But segregate, the particular area where free blacks lived. These were not slaves, obviously. And at a certain point, the mob attacked this section of town because, from their point of view, they were being sent off to fight and die for Negroes with whom they had no sympathy. And it reached a peak when they attacked this orphanage housing African American little girls and burned it down. The place was evacuated. As I say, no troops were available at the time to restore order in New York City. So the United States Navy was sent in. And as depicted in Martin Scorsese's movie Gangs of New York, at the very climax.
Yeah. By the way, do you recommend that one?
Yes, I do. Even though I hate Leonardo DiCaprio.
I'm not a big fan either, but that's okay.
Liam Neeson is also in that as a gang leader. It's basically the Irish against the people who hated the Irish. And Daniel Day-Lewis, who is represents a historically verified character named Bill Butcher, or Butcher Bill. He was an expert with knives, and he was a butcher, a meat.
Yeah, you kind of have to be good at it.
And, well, he was good, though. And they show the gang rivalries among this group. But at the end of the film, the U.S. Navy comes in, and to restore order in this madhouse, this chaos that had erupted in New York City, they shelled New York City. A section of it. Just blew it away. And when the smoke had cleared, there were so many dead and so much destruction. The whole episode led the city fathers to get together and say, we're going to institute reforms. And they started to clean up the slums. They started to, basically, they created social programs to handle poverty and everything else. And I think they eased up on the effort to draft these new immigrants that now constituted a huge population in New York City, to force them to go off to the front and finish the war. When news of a victory at Gettysburg reached New York City, that sort of shored up the morale of the pro-Union people. But then the sacrifices that allegedly were made at that battle in terms of death and destruction, right? Gettysburg was supposedly the bloodiest battle of the whole war. I don't know how we can verify that. I've walked the battlefield. They have a rule there. If you find any kind of artifacts, you got to turn them in.
Sounds like the 9/11 rule.
Well, yeah, but there are still bullet casings and there's still stuff there on the ground at Gettysburg and also at Antietam a year before Gettysburg during Robert E. Lee's first invasion of the North. Where they ended up at a place called Sharpsburg, Maryland, Antietam Creek. The Union always gave a different name to the battle than the Southerners. Like, the Union called Manassas, but the Southerners called it Bull Run. The Union called the Battle of Antietam, which was really Antietam Creek, but the Southerners called it Sharpsburg. I mean, they had different names for these battles depending on how they turned out. Because in particular, if there were Southern victories, the Northerners didn't want to remember it that way. But Antietam, of course, in 1862, Lee's first attempt to invade the North, come back. The Southern strategy was they had to strike fast and hard and gain recognition from the great powers of Europe. In particular, the British Parliament and, of course, the French Empire under Louis Napoleon III, which at the invitation of the South had invaded Mexico, set up a little imperial government down there under Maximilian and Carlotta, and occupied Mexico with French troops in total violation of the Monroe Doctrine. And of course, this gave credence to claims that the Southerners were traitors, which they were. They were traitors to the United States, not because they attempted to secede or because they were against the tariff of abominations or wanted to preserve slavery and extend it. No, they were traitors because they invited foreign powers to come here and intervene, and in particular, the British Navy. The Union, it was supported by the Romanovs, the Russian Empire, which was seeking payback for their loss in the Crimean War of 1853. I'm sorry. I'm getting into all these historical
I know. It's
details.
okay. No, it's okay. I really wanted to get back to Tammany Hall.
Right. Well, that's the thing.
I wanted to get back to that thesis of Drake's about the power structure and what you thought of it. Because according to Google right here, it said Tammany Hall was a powerful New York City political machine from 1789 to 1960s. That's almost the entire American experience.
Yeah, and I would say...
And is it still going, I wonder?
In the 1960s, I think, is when you see the power start to pass from the Irish to the Italian La Cosa Nostra and to the Jews.
Yeah.
You start to see that happen. So Tammany Hall was the quintessential corrupt political organization that rigged elections in New York City and kept the Democrats in power year after year after year. I mean, it really wasn't until Fiorello LaGuardia was elected in 32 maybe or 20. I forget. I think Jimmy Walker who had to leave in a corruption scandal. James Walker.
Yeah.
He was right out of Tammany Hall. So, yeah, basically Tammany ensured a Democratic Party monopoly, was very, very tightly associated with the Catholic Church and whoever was the cardinal of New York City at the time.
Yeah.
And tended to be very Irish it really mostly dominated by Irish politicians. That's why the stereotypical Irish cop is really New York City, Boston, Philadelphia.
Yeah.
A lot of the Irish became cops.
I want to thank Drake for coming on because he doesn't come on very often. He says he has a tough work schedule, but I really think he's on to something with his whole Occupied by Rome series, which I'm putting on the screen now. And I'm now watching his follow-up to that part 2, which is, I can't remember the name right this second.
It's interesting. He didn't go into...
Have you seen it?
I've probably seen some of his stuff, but I go back to Eric John Phelps, Vatican assassins, Jesuit assassins, all that. And look, I have a problem with Southern Israelites. How do I put it? His overemphasis on the past. There is no doubt that the Jesuits terrified Europe for a couple centuries. They were they were assassinating kings and queens. They assassinated the first Bourbon king of France, Henri le Bon, Henry the Good, Henry IV.
Yeah.
Who had issued the Edict of Nantes, declaring full religious toleration for both Protestants and Catholics. French Protestants were called Huguenots. And there's an extensive history on that. And they assassinated him. They several times attempted to assassinate Elizabeth Tudor, who, of course, was heading up the new Church of England and in conflict with Spain, the most Catholic country in Europe at the time.
Yeah.
And there is no doubt that the Jesuits were coordinating covert assassination, military activities, warfare in Europe, well, right on up to about, at least 1700.
He doesn't just talk Jesuits. I don't even think of Jesuits when he talks. He really goes into the whole
angle. The problem I have is, like Johnny Cerrucci, he takes theology too seriously.
Okay.
To me, I really don't care about it's like, well, are the elite Satanists or do they worship Moloch?
Yeah, I don't care about that either. They worship
right. I mean,
They worship the dollar.
Exactly, and that's why I talk about what I call shape shifters.
Mhm.
They're the tell. What do I mean by shape shifters? Wealthy, important people who just smoothly transition from one religious affiliation to another.
Whichever one's in power.
Yeah, well, not just that. I mean, they do it to build, to make money and everything. R. Leslie Deek, D-E-A-K. I think he started life as a Southern Baptist, married a Jewish woman, and converted to Judaism.
Okay.
And then he became a Muslim right after maybe about the time of 9/11. He converted to Islam and financed a building that became a bit of controversy in New York City called the Ground Zero Mosque. And fortunately, there was some journalists out there that they tagged it as a CIA operation. Imagine proposing to build a Muslim cultural center. I don't think it was really a mosque, but right there where 9/11 occurred, calculated to antagonize people. But the money behind it came from the shapeshifter, R. Leslie Deek, who owned a company called Patriot Technologies, LLC. It was a military supplier.
They make the missiles?
Yeah, probably. I think Raytheon makes the actual Patriot missile, but Patriot Technologies, LLC, I don't even know if they're still in business, but I noticed right away this guy, R. Leslie Deek, he was he didn't care whether he was a Jew, a Christian, or a Muslim. He could move back and forth between them. Another one is Mark Malnick, M-A-L-N-I-K. His father, Alvin Malnick, was Meyer Lansky's lawyer and the heir to Meyer Lansky's.
Hey, Lynn, can I
fortune
play
in
this
Miami.
Southern Israelite when I think he called into Jay Dyer's show? You like Jay Dyer, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about Jay Dyer last night. I'd like Jay Dyer to tell me whether Brother Nathaniel is bullshit or not. Because Jay Dyer.
Passos, what's up?
Hold on. Let's see.
Jay Dyer probably.
JB Peltier says for $5. Hey, what's up?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up?
Okay. Yeah. So I've been going through I purchased your Tragedy and Hope series about 7 years ago. I'm doing a critique of it, and I have 6 questions specifically about your theory of the Tragedy and Hope theory. And the first one was
my theory of the theory. What do you mean?
The theory of the Anglo-American establishment. And at the end of Quigley's book, he ends before the civil rights legislation of the Kennedys, and he doesn't even mention Tammany Hall. How would the civil rights legislation in Tammany Hall, its history with Al Smith, FDR, Joseph P. Kennedy, going up into the Kennedy, basically the royal family of Catholics in America, how does that comport with the Anglo-American establishment theory?
So I don't think there is a Anglo establishment theory. I think he's just analyzing the power structure in the 1960s as it existed at that time. So certainly things after that time came to the fore, like the WASP Zionist alliance, which didn't really exist in Quigley's day. So he didn't really focus on it. And also he could have just not been honest about it. He could have been suppressing that side of it because he focuses more on Rockefellers and that angle of it. More so than he does Zionists, but also from the American perspective, the Zionists probably didn't have as much influence and control as they would have in the succeeding decades after the 1960s, and particularly things like the civil rights movement, did benefit the Zionists, for example. So I don't see that that's incompatible with what you're calling the theory. Well,
it's the Tammany Hall Kennedy platform was specifically to benefit Irish and Italian Roman Catholics, and how he's trying, and you and Alice Jones are trying to portray some Anglo-American establishment theory, given that the Tammany Hall regime moving up from Al Smith to FDR and the Kennedy family is very clearly.
Okay, so the Kennedys really controlled America. Catholic. Is that what you're arguing?
Oh, that's a fact. That's absolute fact.
All right, it's too retarded to even continue it. Okay. Goodbye.
So number 2.
Goodbye.
He melts down again.
I didn't melt down. It's just too stupid. Irish Catholics are really controlling America. Are you serious? Okay. I think that's got to be a troll. He's got to be joking. Tyndall.
Okay. What do you think of that, Lynn?
Well,
Drake accuses all these guys of just avoiding his research, I guess. So I want to get your take on that.
Well, like I say, I don't go after groups. I don't make blanket general all the Jews. Oh, it's all the white guys.
Yeah.
It's all the Negroes. No, it's the Muslims. I deal with individuals, and I was talking about shapeshifters who don't care about which particular theology they embrace. Mark Malnick, Alvin Malnick's son, went from being a Miami Mafia Jew to Islam. He converted to Islam, and he married a Saudi princess. And was living like half a year over in Saudi Arabia. They're the people that took over South Beach. And the hub of it was a huge nightclub they owned called The Forge. And you'd see Serena Williams there. Michael Jackson hung out with these people. A lot of pictures of them together. Mark Malnick, who changed his name to Sharif Malnick when he converted to Sunni Islam in Saudi Arabia, is a shapeshifter. Oh, is he a Jew? Is he a Muslim? Is he this? Is he that? Come on, guys. These people are gangsters. They don't care what you think. You want to know who another one I consider one of these shapeshifters who makes the whole question of Jew, Catholic, Jesuit, Ashkenazi kind of irrelevant is John Brennan. John Brennan secretly converted to Islam. It's not such a secret now. But he's a closet case. He's a pederast.
Oh.
And his conversion to Islam in Saudi Arabia gave him access to all the boys he wanted.
Whoa.
So, now Brennan, I guess he was probably originally Irish Catholic, right?
Yeah, sounds like it.
Or Scots Presbyterian. I don't know. But you see, I don't care about theology, Southern Israelite. I don't care about theology, Jay Dyer. I have to say, on Jay Dyer's behalf. He's done very scholarly work in a number of areas. I think his reply to Southern Israelite was dismissive and didn't really address the questions raised about the role of the Kennedy family in Hollywood, Joseph P. Kennedy, and how they managed to secure the presidency for JFK, and the Attorney General's office for RFK Jr., who proceeded to basically try to go after the syndicate, who tended to be more Italian, but it also involved Jews like Meyer Lansky. So I really don't care about your theology that much, Jay Dyer. I know you're into this like Eastern Orthodox thing. I really don't, the filioque and, the dispute over the nature of the Trinity. It's like arguing esoteric symbolism and numerology. I don't give a flying rat's ass about that shit. Because we're living in a gangster world. And religion is nothing but a tool of mind control for these people. So, to Jay Dyer's credit, I have a premiere edition of Carol Quigley's Tragedy and Hope. God, the thing's it's like 6 inches thick, It's like 600 pages. It's huge. And it's very dry reading. He has a lot of charts and tables in it. And it's very comprehensive. But frankly, and I have a copy downstairs on my bookshelf, the premiere edition actually, the cover had a picture of Bill Clinton on the back, who had just been elected president when this was published. Or I think a later edition, the final edition was published. Because Quigley added material to it. And on the back, Clinton says, yeah, he was my professor at Georgetown, and he opened up the world to us. But instead of going out and buying this 600-page volume, I do recommend Jay Dyer's audiobook of Carol Quigley's Tragedy and Hope. Much, much easier to digest. And also, Jay adds a lot of footnotes and parenthetical information that maybe Quigley didn't want to talk about. So, yeah, among other things, I highly recommend Jay Dyer's audiobook of Carroll Quigley's Tragedy and Hope, if you want to tackle that and understand the 19th and 20th centuries. So, but Jay is so buried in this, his version of Christianity. And, that's a whole nother subject that, we can discuss as a religion, among other religions. There's nothing special about Christianity or Judaism or so. The Abrahamic religions, there's nothing special about them, really. I've been studying religions my whole life, especially Eastern religion.
Mm-hmm.
I say again, I don't effing care what group they belong to. Individuals bear responsibility for the lies they tell, for the perjury they commit, for bearing false witness, irrespective of what group they happen to belong to. Oh, that's a Jew.
Well, Southern Israelite calls it the mercantile class. Would you go
Well,
on?
that's what Phoenician Hunter calls it.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I like that.
Yeah.
That absolves all religions, really.
Yeah, Phoenician Hunter has a new one out this week. I got to post a link to it on Calabria, which is sort of southern Italy.
Yeah, that's where most of the Italians that are in North America are from.
Yeah, from that region, which is really has become kind of a backward region of it. I think it had kind of stagnated.
They're the farmers. They were poor. It's the poor Italians. They're the ones that came over here and laid brick and built the country. Phoenician Hunter, yeah, it's very, very well researched. A very good Substack. Knights Before Bishops. I listened to that one.
Right.
The Calabrian Connection. Here we go. Part 2.
Yeah. Now, the problem I have with Phoenician Hunter is his over-reliance on the work of Edwin Johnson, British historian.
Oh, okay. So is that who he's reading from?
Johnson almost tries to erase our concept of the ancient world, and he says Christianity is more or less a late medieval to early modern creation. And I think there's more than enough evidence Christianity's been around longer than that. The roots of Christianity go back a little further than that.
Look at that. Reggio Calabria, Italy, is located in the exact center of the Mediterranean Sea. That's very interesting.
Well, that would give it access to all the trade routes. Does he talk about the Duchy of Amalfi, which I guess became the Republic of Amalfi at a certain point?
Yeah.
The three great centers of trade for centuries that Phoenician Hunter identifies are the Republic of Genoa, which is where Columbus came from.
Yes.
The serene Republic of Venice.
Venetians,
which really fielded the greatest navy at one time. And then also the Duchy of Amalfi.
Yeah.
And
that's on the bottom near
the Maritime Republics, he calls them.
Yeah.
Genoa, I'm trying to remember. Genoa was ultimately, I think, it lost its preeminence. At one point, it was the most powerful, but trying to remember the occasion that led to Genoa getting edged out by the others. But as I said, Christopher Columbus was from Genoa, we're pretty sure. And the Genoese were famous for their mercenaries. They perfected the use of the crossbow. And for a couple centuries, Genovese crossbowmen were a staple in every royal army in Europe. If you wanted to fight a war, you needed a whole regiment of Genovese crossbowmen. How they stood up against the English longbow in the 100 Years' War is another question, because while the crossbow can be very effective, it doesn't quite have the range or the power of the English longbow, which ultimately came to dominate just at the moment that cannon and firearms were starting to show up in European warfare. Of course, we first see the introduction of cannon during the 100 Years' War. Very, very first cannon are at the end of the 1300s, and then as the 1400s proceed, you see cannon really evolving, and then finally, by 1453, the Ottoman Turks were able to breach the walls of Constantinople, which no one ever thought would happen, with cannon. And it was, of course, the Ottoman Turks' mastery of cannon and firearms and modern military technology that made them the biggest thing in Europe from about 1400 to maybe 1700 for about 300 years. Yeah. So at a time when by the mid 1600s, a Turkish army was at the gates of Vienna for about the third time. So, yeah, I wouldn't underestimate the role of the Ottoman Turks in this. When you look at the late medieval and Renaissance period, what you're looking at is this constant contention between the Republic of Venice and the Ottoman Empire. And at various times, the Venetians allied themselves with the Ottoman Empire, sometimes against the Pope. And ultimately, of course, I think the Venetians wanted to see the destruction of Constantinople because they led the sack of Constantinople in 1204 during the Fourth Crusade. They financed the whole crusade. And those crusaders, instead of going on to the Holy Land, they decided they'd sack Constantinople. And that's a whole narrative in itself. It's the most disgraceful.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the map. So, yeah.
One of the most disgraceful crimes committed in the name of Christ was the sack. I mean, here.
This was the whole world, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Mediterranean, of course. Yeah, and here were these Latin Christians, basically Normans and European knights. And they regarded the Eastern Orthodox as Greeks. They called them Greeks. Well, they were Greek Christians. And in fact, their version of Christianity was older and more legitimate than this artificial thing, the Pope, and the College of Cardinals, and Rome's authority over world Christianity is very, very questionable, very doubtful. They have no basis for claiming the primacy of the Pope as Christ's representative on earth. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
For the longest time, the Patriarch
of Christ.
Yeah, the Patriarch of Constantinople was just as important or more important than the Pope for a long time. But when Constantinople fell to the Ottoman Turks in 1453, because they had cannon, Europe was shocked. I mean, this was the biggest thing since the original fall of Rome in 476, although, that Rome had fallen and gotten back up a couple times. But the replacement of the original Rome in the west by something called the Ostrogothic Kingdom of Italy, founded by Theodoric, a great general, and, who employed Latin scholars at his court, but he was very independent. And he was an Arian Christian. He was a follower of Presbyter Arius, who had been declared a heretic, ultimately, by the official so-called Orthodox Church. And that gets into a whole nother study of the nature of the Trinity and how Christians murdered and tortured each other over their theological disagreements. And then, of course, when they were done with that, they moved on to Jews. So, yeah, the Mediterranean world is the crucible of our civilization, of course.
Yeah,
the notion of Europe only arises because of the Islamic conquests of all of the old lands of the Eastern Roman Empire, right on across through North Africa and Spain.
Yeah.
So, Europe was a backwater for several centuries, of course.
Yeah. Just looking at this map, I don't think most people study it. It's very interesting the way this is laid out, and you can see all the important points. And why is it relevant? Because that's where everyone is talking about now, not Mediterranean, but the Middle East over here.
Yeah, control of the Mediterranean was the key thing for most of history with respect to Europe. With respect to Europe, North Africa, and Eurasia, certainly control of the Mediterranean. And, from the Mediterranean, you get into the Black Sea through the Dardanelles.
Yeah.
It takes you right into the heart of Russia and Ukraine and Central Asia. So, yeah, absolutely. You got the Eurasian landmass there, and then you got the Mediterranean. And the Romans called the Mediterranean Mare Nostrum. our sea,
sea, yeah.
like a giant lake. And I got to say, on behalf of the Romans, for centuries, they eliminated piracy in the Mediterranean. They secured a common trade and tourist industry, and basically the same Roman coinage that you could go from Alexandria, Egypt, all the way to Carthage, and then over to Spain, and then up to Britannia, and spend that coinage.
Is that right? They
Yeah,
had the world currency back then.
Sure, yeah, Roman coinage, Roman roads. Man, the Romans were great road builders.
Aqueducts.
Yeah, aqueducts and bathhouses and yeah,
Bring back the
stadiums.
bathhouses.
Roman stadiums still are all over Europe and the Middle East and even North Africa. And temples too, beautiful temples, the remnants of them. It's great civilization that they built. And when, as I say, what really, I subscribe to the thesis of a French scholar named Henri Perrin, pretty much summarized in his work, Muhammad and Charlemagne, where he shows that the Islamic conquest of North Africa and the Middle East was really the beginning of Europe, because it broke up the old Roman Empire and destroyed trade in the Eastern Mediterranean, essentially. And it took a long time for Europeans to be able to even venture out there. During the early medieval period, because the Muslims controlled everything. Of course, the Muslims issued their own coinage and had their own system, and became sort of a center of gravity for the development of the advancement of civilization for several centuries. And the Crusades were entirely in response to that. And Phoenician Hunter argues that the Crusades were really about controlling trade routes and the flow of goods.
Finance,
yeah. And he credits the Templars with having originated a lot of he says they were there as mercenaries, essentially.
yeah.
He says that the holy orders, the military orders that the Pope canonized, which would be originally the Knights of St. John, the Hospitallers, who were supposed to be providing medical treatment.
They ended up doing security.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, the Templars, and then finally the Teutonic Knights, who and it's really kind of, we think about the Crusades as focused on the Holy Sepulchre, in Jerusalem, but in fact, the Crusades really started in the Reconquista of Spain. Already by the 11th century, the Christians were attempting to reconquer Spain, and in Central and Eastern Europe, the Teutonic Knights were commissioned by the Pope to forcibly convert East Prussia and Poland and these areas where a lot of the remnants of paganism persisted right on up until the 14th and 15th century. And the Templars, well, Phoenician Hunter considers them mercenaries, essentially. And says that, I guess his argument would be that the Italian mercantile republics used Rome and the papacy to justify and motivate these mercenary armies that ultimately captured Jerusalem in 1099 and held it until 1187, when it was recaptured by Salah ad-Din, who was actually a Kurd. So, and then there were a number of crusades. That there was one that was sort of a successful attack on Egypt, and the Crusaders did manage to hold on to some outposts in the Middle East. They never recaptured Jerusalem, but ultimately they were driven out of these places and ended up on the island of Malta. That's where the Hospitallers ended up.
Yeah.
The Knights of Malta were the Knights Hospitaller of St. John. And the Templars, we know what happened to them. They became Freemasons after they were all burned at the stake.
Lynn, you got a caller in, or caller. Where are you calling from? What's your name?
Hey, Lynn. Hey, fakeologist. Jay from Texas.
Dave from Texas. Hello.
Hey.
Hey, I was listening to what you've been through the whole show. It's pretty
Lynn knows a
pretty
lot.
good.
Yeah,
You know,
Jay, you were asking about, is it really a war or not? And man, this holy wars, Hegseth, what's his name?
yeah, Pete Hegseth, you know him.
Man, this guy's out there. This is a holy war. It's a biblical war. God has ordained it. And he's leading these prayer sessions with the troops. So I'm telling you.
Well, it Protestants' theories.
Well, yeah, I don't underestimate the ideological and emotional force that this notion has. But people are being manipulated. They're being conned with this. Come on.
Absolutely. Of course they
And
are.
look at the price of gas. Man, they're really cashing in. Hey, I was going to ask you, what's diesel look like
Well,
now?
it's $2 Canadian a liter, which is $8 Canadian a gallon, which is maybe $6 US.
Man,
here.
how high is
It's
it going to
war.
get?
That'll just keep going. It'll
Well,
go
this is
back
going to
down,
drive up the price of any commodity that depends on trucking, of course.
which is everything.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a war on resources, Lynn.
Yes. It's a war on
Yeah,
populations,
war
of
on
course.
resources. Because you were just talking about like the Romans and everything. No matter what it was, the Greeks, Egyptians, Romans, Ottomans, Christians, Muslims, or Jews, their coinage was always copper, silver, and gold, which is not only like it's like a resource for us in a way. You know, you have copper tools, and you have the silver instruments for medical, and then gold has always been used as a temple metal, and even now gold is used as a status symbol, right? You know,
Well, you can't have stable price stability, which you need to some extent. You cannot have economic stability without a reliable currency. As soon as you start chipping away, like what happened with Rome, one of the main reasons why the Roman Empire declined and fell was because of the debasement of the coinage. They kept leaching silver out of the coinage, and the troops caught on to this, so they kept demanding a raise in pay to compensate for the amount of silver that was being leached out of the coinage. And ultimately, this led to mutinies and revolts and civil wars. And see, the worst thing you can do is debase your coinage or your currency, which is what's happening now.
They had to do that because the real hard resources like grains or minerals or manufactured products like glassware or tools in the regions that they were holding the I guess the nomads or the whatever you would want to call them, the barbarians came in and it started messing with the whole, the logistics. And then instead of just like raise prices, you try to stabilize it by doing that, and that's what messed them up. Just like now, right? Because you could see it with the you just talked about diesel and the cost of energy, and it's real interesting, because you know what a piece of 8 is, right? The silver coin, Spanish piece of 8.
Doubloons. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
16 men on a dead man's chest, yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum.
Right. It's a silver coin, right? And then you have the American silver coin.
Well, those were Spanish. That was actually Spanish gold doubloons that remind that the Inca and Mayan slaves that the Spanish and the Portuguese put to work in the mines. That's where all that money came from.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about where that off the subject I was talking about. But just a side note, that's funny because when the Spanish discovered the silver in America, it really made a boom for Europe once everything started going back. And
and then of course the Dutch. Yeah, the Dutch also were among the first to issue a coinage that was recognized throughout the world, and it was when you look at the rise and fall of empires, Spain especially. And then the Dutch, very briefly, and then of course the rise of the English. It's all about their ability to issue currency, which is to say coinage, a specie, whatever it's called, that's reliable, that you can use anywhere in the world. It's what the pound sterling for centuries was literally the gold standard. Well, the pound sterling, I guess, was silver, but I guess what I'm saying is silver and gold set a standard for a stable store of value. If you can't store the value without worrying that it's going to go up or it's going to go down, well, you want it to go up, but if the value of it is going to collapse, what good is it to you? And coinage pretty much retains its value. Now this poses the whole question of, what does digital money really mean? Is digital money going to make coin obsolete?
We already have digital money, though.
Right.
Well, it's more like digital currency.
It is obsolete. I don't have any coins. Do you?
See, but the coin is just a factor for the actual resource, copper, silver, and gold, right? And that's what made it economically feasible to have that.
It made it valuable because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to duplicate. It's hard to what's the word?
I don't know. Is that artificial though? Look at diamonds.
It's harder to counterfeit.
Why are diamonds considered so valuable?
It's value. It's value for value. Like you always say, fakeologists. You always say if you have value for value, and people, even though they don't believe in the coinage themselves, they say, "Oh, this is copper. I can make a tool out of it." Or this is silver. I can make.
No, I think it's just because it's the average person can't make a silver coin or a gold coin. Obviously, anything can be counterfeit, but in general, it's difficult to duplicate. Otherwise, we could use pieces of grass as currency, and it would never work.
Yeah, when you look at an American coinage that says "In God We Trust,"
yeah,
like how blasphemous can you get?
Yeah,
you're saying this is in the name of God we're issuing this currency,
Hey, by the way, I wanted to ask Jay, are you aware of all Lynn's work on the Fakeologist forums? Do you go there?
Not all of it. I go there a little bit, but not all of it. But I know what you talk about.
I want to point out because more people need to check out Lynn's work. And
I got all kinds of great videos, even movies. I link to movies there. So yeah, it's not just, you don't have to read if you don't like reading. I got great videos, great movies, recommended sites.
Yeah.
It isn't just to read my commentary.
No, that's why I like this show. It has the ideas you don't hear a lot. They're not like as not the popular ideas. That's why
we talk about the world through a fakeologist perspective. Nobody else does that. Nobody.
Yeah, and you also have people who understand history in the way that
Lynn does.
It's not.
Yeah, Lynn
does.
Like
that's what I was.
Now wait a minute. Now let's be clear on this. I know the official narrative, and I know some alternative narratives. That doesn't mean I know real history. Sorry. Hate to disappoint you. I don't know how much of it's real.
You know the official history.
Yeah. And I've been to some, I've climbed Mount Parnassus and seen the Oracle of Apollo at Delphi and, the Roman Forum and the Athenian Agora. And, I've seen a lot of these places. So to me, the history, it is kind of in concrete, a lot of it. It's not just something I've read about or imagine. I've seen the physical evidence of these magnificent temples that they built. And I don't think these are just modern creations. They've been around for a while. So.
Okay.
Jay, I recommend the forum. I have a whole series on warfare in movies.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like you were, because that's why I talked about the balloon. You were talking about the Civil War, and you were saying, like, do you know how many? You know what the official narrative is? How many people died? Right? They said like 600,000, right?
Yeah, in the end,
but that was that. They only count the North. They never count the Southern. Those are not the Southern deaths.
No, I think it does count casualties in the South as well. I mean,
not because
people dispute. They say the numbers are exaggerated. They say no one would ever have been crazy enough to charge across a mile-wide field into an entrenched artillery position the way Pickett did at Gettysburg. They say all this. But, in fact, we have plenty of evidence of amputees. The soldiers who survived this war with one leg or one arm or blind, there were so many of them, and there are many, many photographs of them. This was a bloody war. There were a lot of deaths, and even if the numbers are exaggerated, it was certainly no picnic for either side. Totally unnecessary, in my opinion, but.
Yeah, yeah, I understand all that because those people you can't hide. But there was this documentary about the pictures about all the Civil War pictures. They did like a pretty long documentary.
Yeah, Matthew Brady. Matthew Brady is the most famous of the Civil War
Yeah, it was
photographers.
talking about those. It was talking about those and talking about how the grave diggers were only told to pick up and bury Union soldiers. And a lot of grave diggers, a lot of the black grave diggers, that they said it was just written down in their memoirs. And it's just real interesting because that's one thing that not many people knew. And it's just like the slavery narrative. Like, I don't really believe the slavery narrative. I think that's a psyop from the North. That's why I was kind of questioning the guest yesterday. It was not questioning. Like, I was thinking like how he said he was part of the Klan and everything, and that was reformed in the 20s after, it was brought in during the Civil War, but for eugenics purpose, because the North never really liked the South in the way that people think.
It was finance. It was money. You got to watch. I really recommend watching Southern Israelites Occupied by Rome and the follow-up. I'll upload the follow-up, but I put a link to it. It's on Rumble. He has a Rumble channel. It really gives a good insight into what the war was all about. To me, it's always about money. All the social issues are all sideshows.
Yeah.
Well, both sides were financed by the Rothschilds, of course.
Okay.
August Belmont came here as a representative of the Rothschild Bank to set up the financing for the war.
Okay.
Of course, yeah, both sides were financed by the same European bank and American bankers.
Yes.
Yes.
And what do we have going on now? Same thing.
Yeah.
It's just everything's always the same.
That's the litmus test, right?
Everything's always the same. There are no other systems that us humans have to distract and make money.
I posted a link to a video about the financing of both sides during World War II. Another thing, too, a point I want to make here.
Okay.
We misrepresent the reality of these wars when we say, well, the Civil War started in 1861. No, it didn't. The Civil War started in 1855 in Kansas. And was going on for at least 5 or 6 years before the South officially seceded. It was called Bleeding Kansas. So the war was already taking place. People say, well, World War II started when Hitler invaded Poland in 1939. No, it didn't. World War II started with the overthrow of the Spanish Republic in 1936. Really started even before that when Mussolini invaded Africa and conquered Ethiopia and Libya. Yeah. But the Luftwaffe and the Italian Air Force and the Germans tried out all their military technology during the Spanish Civil War from 36 to 39. So to say World War II started in 39 is really wrong. It started at least in 36. And I could say the same thing about World War I. There were already small conflicts taking place in the Balkans as the great powers picked apart the crumbling remnants of the Ottoman Empire, the sick man of Europe. And they thought they could keep it limited to these local conflicts. And someone else had bigger ideas. They really wanted to see a world war because it was going to be very profitable. So, and once again, the financing. So, yeah, these wars, they said, well, it officially started at this time and it officially ended at this time. The 100 Years' War, where basically, English mercenaries raped the French over and over and over again until the French figured out how to use cannon. They spent 100 years fighting the English. And then when they finally drove the English out, they had this huge cutting-edge army. And what did they do? They invaded Italy and tried to take over Italy, occupied Naples. Same thing with the Spanish Reconquista. Ferdinand and Isabella built one of the great armies of Europe. They finally conquered the last Islamic outpost in Spain, the city of Granada. And when they were done, they needed to do something with all these young men who they had recruited. Hence, we get the exploration and conquest of the New World. Cortez, Pizarro, Coronado, all the Conquista, Balboa.
And the finding of the silver, and then and that's what I was saying, going back to my original question with the doubloon. Like, did you know during the Civil War, like I think 1861, Abraham Lincoln banned the trade in the northern colonies. You couldn't use the silver coin from Spain. You could only use the American dollars.
Well, he also issued greenbacks, right?
Yeah, but why
paper money?
Why would
he? And it wasn't. Was it backed by anything? Greenbacks?
It was backed by the debt of the American. But it's just interesting. Like, why would they ban a coin that's pure silver? That's silver. Or I mean, it's weird. Like almost like,
you know what that is? That's just like when they arrested the people who issued that Ron Paul Liberty Dollar.
Right.
They should never have called it a dollar.
Symbolism, right?
Never. They should have called it something else.
What about the Bitcoin guy that they allegedly arrested too? Whatever his name was.
Well, was it Peter Schiff or Irving Schiff?
No, it was some other guy in New Hampshire.
I posted a link to a video on whether prison is real or not.
Mm-hmm.
That has an interview with one of these guys who's been locked up for 5 years. He's had to wear like an ankle bracelet.
Okay.
And
yeah,
he was one of the founders of BitChute. This guy, I should go find that.
All right, Jay, I gotta go because I got one more caller, and then I gotta.
Thank you, Lynn.
Then I gotta run.
Yeah, good to hear from you, Jay.
Thank you, Jay.
Good to hear from you too. Thank you.
Take care. Jay always has good questions. Okay, caller, where are you calling from? What's your name?
Brian in Washington.
Brian in Washington. Hello, Brian. How's Jenna?
Hanging in there. Thank you.
Okay.
John LeBon is fond of a wordage phrase. Is it the Jays or the other Jays? So that's what yesterday's whole broadcast was all about. And I'm insisting, it was 20 years ago after 9/11. We're going to get to the bottom, but we're going to figure out, was it the Jesuits or the other Jays that did it? And it was a, complete waste of time, but they roped everybody in for a week. We're going to really have this discussion.
Oh, who did? Who was having? Did we have the discussion?
No, 20 years ago, AM radio, Air America, Mark Levin was very popular. Anyway, it's ancient history, and you guys are still doing it yesterday. I think
it was a good show, wasn't it?
Section, yeah, you thought it was a banger. I found it extremely trying to listen to. I'm sure others did as well. But as to the comment section, in the past, there has been some encouragement. Can we update from ancient history? I am encouraging this Simon Dixon, who is just like yourself, Tim, very fond of saying, I just follow the money.
Okay.
So if you don't know who he is, he's got his own YouTube channel of that name. He debates people like Ryan Dawson and this Professor Zhang. He has a take on what is going on, who's in control, who's pulling the strings on all this, and it's not either of those. What Lynn just described as this religious thing is just a way to control us. Well, there is a whole bunch of nations in that Middle East region loaded with dough, and they are having some sway in all this, as is China and Russia, and we're avoiding these other places on the planet that are instrumental in this. And the other rabbit hole that people go in is Trump, Bibi's poodle dog, or is it the other way around? Simon Dixon has some information that I think your listeners might appreciate. And since Simon is independently wealthy, he has the time to go on shows. It would just be a matter of an invitation, and he could add to the discussion.
This guy here, Simon Dixon is the CEO and co-founder of banktothefuture.com.
Correct.
Okay. I never heard of him, but okay. Does he do shows?
All over the place. Plus, he has his own channel on YouTube.
Okay. Why do you follow him? Why do you follow him? What's your interest?
Well, because I have people that consider my opinions credible, and they want to know what's going on, what's the future, what should I support, what should I oppose. This is all things that we can do now before the central bank digital currency and the SDGs and the ES whatever. These, are going to be enacted, and you're not going to be able to open your mouth, let alone type anything on the internet and voice any of your opinions without getting shut down.
I'm sharing a screen right now.
I think that's fear porn. I don't believe any
it's
of
fear
that.
porn. I'm sharing a screen right now.
Brian, don't be afraid.
Sharing a screen.
Okay, I'll put it up.
Simon Dixon
you've already done it. Yeah, you've already done it.
Yeah, if you want to understand what he's about, you can start here.
Okay.
I know Brian doesn't like going to the forum. I don't know why.
Why is that, Brian?
Why is it, Brian? Why don't you use our forum if you're so... Yeah. Here I am promoting it, and you won't even use it.
Yeah, why don't you use the forum, Brian?
You can post links to videos and everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, Brian.
He comes here, he says, you got to hear this guy, Simon Dixon. Well, Brian, I posted this link to an interview with Simon Dixon back, let's see how long ago this is. It's like maybe months, a couple of months, I think.
Okay, Simon Dixon on the gangster dollar empire. Okay,
right. That summarizes his view of it very much.
Can you just give me a précis?
Yeah. And this is part 2 of this interview. And they basically join dots that most people are never really connecting most of the time. They talk about power as structure, not ideology. We talk about power as structure, not ideology. And finance as a mechanism that quietly shapes wars, wealth, social division, and the rise and fall of nations.
I like
explore central banks, boom and bust cycles, which he says are manipulated, and why societies are repeatedly pushed to breaking point, not by accident, but by design. We also look at how economic pressure is redirected into cultural conflict or religious conflict, while the real financial machinery remains untouched. So, it's all there.
I do like the guy because, number one, he has his own blog, and it looks like he hosts his own videos. So he's already smarter than the average bear. So I do I think this is a good lead. Brian, do you want to reach out and have him on my show? That'd be good.
Yeah, why don't you call him, Brian, and ask him to come on?
Well, because I don't have WhatsApp. I do not own a cell phone.
Do you have any phone? Do you have an email?
You have email?
Come on, Brian. Now you're making excuses.
Yeah. Well, you have some credibility in that you have a show.
I have no credibility.
Yeah, you like this guy. I've posted links to his stuff, Brian. Why don't you email him and say, hey, we'd like to interview you at fakeologist.com.
I've done it many times.
Because he's not, I'm going to tell you right now, he will admit that some events are fake, but he doesn't qualify as a fakeologist, in my opinion.
Okay.
Let's get him on and have him understand what this Utopia Amuleto movie was trying to get across. What's coming is there aren't going to be any police. The community is going to police itself in a new form of global governance. That's why I'm trying to get you to get him on. I don't go to the forum, Lynn, because I got a full-time gig just trying to get some discussions going amongst others, people that need to be conversing, why we have a little bit of that opportunity before all of this gets censored.
Brian, do you think time is running out?
I do.
Are you a bit of a doomer?
Are you an end times eschatologist?
You're a bit of a doomer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watch the Omeletto Utopia 15 minutes, which I'm encouraging Jay to get around to. And I think this technology thing is going to be something to avoid and no longer support. We had opportunity to use a tool that was invented from the military, but at a certain point, these wonderful little gifts to us are going to have tentacles attached.
I disagree.
Around the corner.
In my view, there is no new world order. It's the same old order with a fresh paint job.
Yes, I agree. I'm not worried, Brian, but I don't think it'll happen in your lifetime, and probably not mine either. So I wouldn't worry too much.
But they can cause a lot of chaos.
Well, that's chaos is the oil of the economy.
Yeah,
that's what keeps things moving. You got to keep things moving. I was talking to my investment guy this morning. We were talking about oil. He calls it oil, because he's from Louisiana. He was talking about how it shot up and it was hurting his position. And I said to him, we just need Trump to say the war is almost over again, and it'll go back down. So it's these guys just move markets. That's what they do. There's no proof anyone is in the Strait of Hormuz stopping any ships at all. There's no way.
Lloyd's of London is stopping ships from going through the Straits of Hormuz.
Well, Trump said
by refusing to insure them.
Yeah, but Trump said he was going to cover that.
Yeah, you heard the last word on that. The U.S. Navy says they can't do it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they started getting requests from LNG.
For escorts? They want escorts?
And the Navy says, sorry, we're not ready to do this yet. So Trump went out on a, was off the wall in saying they would do this.
You mean Trump said something without any
something else?
Remember,
last week or the week before, I talked about the cost, the millions and millions of dollars it costs to redeploy the aircraft carrier Gerald R. Ford and its carrier group from the Caribbean to the Persian Gulf. Well, the Gerald R. Ford has disappeared. No one can find it.
Where is it? Does it have a Apple AirTag on it so we can track it?
I don't know, but here's the thing. I was talking to a bartender at a local restaurant who was in the military, and you know what he told me? He said when those guys don't want to go out on long deployments, they stuff shirts in the toilets. And the word is the Gerald, over half the toilets on the Gerald R. Ford.
It's not a plumbing problem.
Yes. It's important having all the toilets repaired because those guys, they don't want to go back out on another long deployment.
No, I don't blame them. Brian, I'm going to follow up and try and listen to this guy. I'm going to squeeze him into my already overloaded YouTube listening cycle. And we'll see what we can do. He might be a little too big for our little small operation here, but you never know. But I appreciate you calling.
And I'm looking forward to you telling him that you're investing in the stock market and seeing his reaction.
Okay.
So yeah.
What am I supposed to invest in? Trees or what? I mean, tell me. I'd love to know.
It's his opinion, which I'm not defending him. I can't tell you he's on the up and up, blah, blah. It's interesting information. I believe precious metals in self-custody held, and he is very fond of Bitcoin, of which you as well have that in common. That's why I keep pestering you to possibly have him on.
I like the idea of Bitcoin, but it's just one of many things a diversified portfolio should have. And I'm not going balls to the walls on any one thing, but I like gold. I like silver. I like copper. I like Bitcoin. I like Costco. I like.
Does anybody like diamonds?
I don't like diamonds.
Diamonds are a girl's best friend.
I like land. I like all kinds of stuff, but I don't have any art, but yeah, I think you just need to be aware of everything and anything because any one thing could be the next big thing, and nobody really knows. You
want a diversified portfolio.
Yeah, you don't want to be overly diversified because there's
like real estate, for example.
Yeah.
Well, real estate's a good thing to own, but you got to pay taxes on it.
And maintenance.
It's got to be zoned, and
Of course.
Do you like to own stock in Donald's military-industrial complex war machine?
Well, you can't avoid that.
Everyone does. Everyone has got
If you collect
money.
a pension, if you collect a pension, where the hell you think your pension fund is?
Yeah. Do you think it's just sitting in a money market fund or a GI or
Now,
a
I have to say,
T-bill? Come on, Brian.
I'm a big supporter of BDS, boycott, divest, and sanction. I'm a big supporter of that because that's the roots of the American independence movement. Basically, the American independence movement started as a boycott, divest, and sanction movement. Just like people want to do, if they want to protest the Israelis stealing Palestinian land by boycotting Israeli products, divesting from any investments.
Lynn, that's hate speech. Okay, you're gonna get in trouble.
Right? I'm anti-Semitic.
That is hate speech. Right?
Yeah, the laws that have been passed.
Yeah, it's crazy.
In here in the United States that prohibit you from that try to stop you from participating in the BDS movement are the most un-American laws on the books right now.
Yeah. Well, who said?
Yeah, they can't tell. You're entitled to show your opinion by how you spend your money. If you don't want to buy British East India tea, you don't have to. Doesn't mean you're going to go dump it in the harbor, but boycott, divest, sanction is the most American way there is to protest. So anybody who's trying to outlaw that, they're un-American.
Yes, Brian.
I had a really good moment in a kitchen drinking beer
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian. I think his phone just died. Which, Brian, save the kitchen and beer story for the next call. Yeah. That was a good call. I didn't cut him off, I know everyone thinks I'm a hard ass on Brian, which he deserves most of the time, but actually I was looking forward to that story. But the show's over and we got to go, and that's the music to play us out. Lynn, thanks for the history lesson. Good call tonight. I enjoyed it, and I really
don't get overawed by religion, ideology. These are gangsters. They're just using the religion and the ideology to manipulate people. Come on, it's a con.
Well, religion is the number one thing that gets people's attention because people are divided into religions. At least they used to be. I think the biggest religion is no religion right now. But they're still it's just a way to corral people and pull people along.
It's livestock management.
Yeah.
Of human livestock.
Yeah, that's what we are. All right. Well, it's the end of the Fakeologist week, and maybe I'll try and reach out to some fresh guests. And fakeologistforums.com is working. I moved it, and pretty much works as used to, right, Lynn? Pretty much.
Yeah, I'm using it. It works for me.
It's pretty much working, so that's good. And I moved the blog, and it's mostly working. And FAKOTube is there on its own. And everything is pretty good. So if you guys like this show, put your money where your mouth is and exchange value for value, and send a few. Send whatever you want. One guy was saying,
I just renewed my yearly membership.
Oh, you're the best. Thanks, Lynn. I don't really go over who's sending what.
It's not important.
This list is kind of out of date, but I think it is. A lot of these people are monthly donors, which I really appreciate. And a lot of them don't even come to the show anymore. And I've asked them, listen, if you don't, make sure you know that you're still donating. It's on auto payment. So I really appreciate those people.
I think a lot of people are exhausted. Fakeology, it's exhausting to track Fakeology. It really is. It's disheartening and exhausting. We got to keep morale up, you know?
Well, these shows help. If you go to fakeologist.com/donate, someone want to know how to send a Satoshi. Now, here it is. You just scan this QR code. That's it. And the address, I think, is fakeologist@walletofsatoshi.com. But it's a lot easier just to scan this with your phone. Otherwise, I don't know how you would use the address to do it. Just scan, and that'll send it. And Gilliard, you can download the show off YouTube or play it off YouTube. You know, the show's on YouTube, Twitter, FAKOTube. None of those guys are deleting it anymore. I don't bother deleting it either. And so go there. Somebody said they couldn't hear the show because it was cut off on FAK1232. Well, just go to YouTube.
Yeah, go to YouTube or Twitter X. You know, yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Or go to the blog. It's
BitChute. Cloverfield posts a lot of our stuff on BitChute.
Yeah, I like Cloverfield. I asked him to come on, but I don't think he talks. But yeah, I like him. He's sort of Jim's mongoose.
Nemesis.
Mongoose. He grabs a hold of the Jim's.
Poor Jim.
Takes him around. Hey, you know what? When you put yourself out there, that's what happens, you know? But that's okay. I don't
Jim's
mind.
being pursued by Brazilians.
Oh, yeah, they're after him. Come on, Lynn. You weren't there. You don't know.
I wasn't there. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, you don't know. That was a good episode. That really got his goat.
I know.
That really got his goat. Am I streaming tonight? I just looked and it says not streaming. Are you kidding me right now? Did I forget to stream on the audio? Maybe that's why no one's listening. Oh, they're all listening to a record. I don't know what's going on tonight. Okay. It doesn't matter because I'll get the audio from the YouTube or the FAK1232. But maybe it turned itself off. I don't know what happened here. I don't know what happened. Did it disconnect here? Maybe it got disconnected tonight. Oh, yeah, it looks like it disconnected. I don't know. All right, Lynn, thanks a lot, and have a good night, and we'll see you next week. And thank you to everybody here for joining. Bye-bye.